It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling tales for dark nights.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm your host, Steve Taylor, and tonight we're leaving the comfort of dry land behind, venturing into cold, unforgiving waters where storms are only the beginning of your worries. For generations, sailors have spoken of the sea with equal measures of awe and fear. It feeds us, it carries us, it connects distant shores, but it also guards secrets older than civilization itself. Things that drift far below the reach of sunlight, waiting patiently beneath restless waves. Tonight's tale reminds us that not every ship lost at sea is simply claimed by wind or weather. And sometimes the greatest danger isn't what sinks beneath the ocean. Sometimes it's what returns from the murky depths. So batten down the hatches, keep a weather eye on the horizon, and get cozy. The show is about to begin. Tonight's featured tale of terror comes to us courtesy of acclaimed horror author William Meikle, performed by Daryl Castillo, with production by Craig Groshek. I present to you Home from the Sea.
The Irishman's in trouble. It was no night to be out on the water, but it was an unwritten law in Trinity. If one of us is in trouble, we all are. I drank down the shot of rum I had but left the ale where it sat. The sea was going to be rough enough without having sour beer rolling in my gut. I went with the crowd to the dock and peered through the wind and spray. "How far out?" someone asked. "Just past the Narrows, floundering, can hold on the port side. We'll need 4 boats at least." The long rowboats normally took 8 men, but we had to leave room for bringing the Irishman and his crew, if need be. We set out 5 boats with 4 men in each rowing hard into a headwind and swell that threatened to send us as far back as forward with every stroke. It wasn't the first time I'd been out in such conditions, but it was the first attempt at rescuing a big whaler such as the Dubliner. I knew they'd been out for 3 weeks and guessed they might have even had a catch aboard. Their weight, the weather, and the sheer number of crew loomed large on my mind. I tried to ignore the increasing pain and tiredness from rowing, but I knew it was only the start of the evening's trials. By the time we reached the Narrows, we were all spent. Matters weren't helped much when the lead boat capsized. They were too far away from us to help them, but I saw clearly enough that all 4 men made it ashore. The men clambered up to the point and waved. I knew they had a long, wet walk ahead of them to get back to the warmth of a tavern. But I couldn't waste time worrying, as I too had to fight the waves and crosswinds that threatened to send us towards the same fate. I was so busy concentrating on keeping us upright and moving forward that I was nearly thrown from my seat as the prow hit something hard. I turned to yell an oath at the other sailors, but my words were lost as I looked up and saw the massive bulk of the Dubliner looming over us. over the gunwales and stood beside Roberts. The deck laid empty, save for a large whale carcass on the platform at the stern. My fears of finding human corpses were allayed, but I had a sinking feeling in my gut as I realised we were going to have to search the vessel. The deck lurched beneath us as the boat was caught in a larger swell. For a second, I thought we were going to have to tumble over the side, but the keel righted itself. As the Dubliner steadied, more men came up from the rowboats. When there were more than a dozen men on deck, Roberts organised a search. I went with Gallagher and Roberts. We headed for the crew's quarters, while the others went to search the engine room, the mess and the cargo holds. 4 men worked on getting the vessel moving again, planning to get her at least through the Narrows to quieter waters in the sheltered bay. As we walked the deck of the rocking ship, silence fell on us like a blanket. Several oil lamps hung overhead at regular intervals, providing a modicum of light. The lamps cast bands of shadows that seemed to cavort and caper, leading us deeper into what I feared would be our own doom. Descending a flight of stairs, my legs felt like jelly. Every fibre of my being wanted to flee back to the tavern to get as much rum as I could get inside of me. But for the presence of Roberts and Gallagher, I might have allowed myself to succumb to the terror. My fear of ridicule was stronger than the fear of the unknown, so I followed Roberts as we went deeper into the boat. The Irishman's cabin was empty, save for a bottle of rum on the sideboard that shouted at me as I turned away to the corridor. When we stepped into the next cabin, I wish I had listened. We found our first corpse. At first I was not entirely sure what I was seeing. It looked as if someone had left a pile of clothing on the floor. Then I saw a slimy trail of blood. It led to a 6-inch wide strip away from the clothing, across the floor, then up the wall to where it stopped at the open porthole. As I bent for a closer look, it became all too obvious that what was left was little more than a sack of skin and bones. I couldn't take my eyes off the sight. I had no idea what could have done it. I only knew that I did not want to meet the culprit. "I know that jacket," Roberts said softly. "It's Edward Malone." Roberts was right. It was Ed, or rather, what was left of him. A fierce drinker, a born seaman, and a man who would fight you as quick as look at you. "There's another one here," Gallagher shouted from out of the corridor. We found more remains at every turn, but no indication as to the cause of death. We only saw more bloody trails, most of which led from the bodies to outside of the vessel. "What the hell happened here?" Gallagher whispered. Neither Roberts nor I had an answer for him. The silence was broken by a scream from above, and a yell of pain and suffering that tore at my heart. We headed topside at a run. We arrived on deck to a scene of bloody chaos. Men ran and screamed, blood flew, the wind howled while the vessel bucked and rolled beneath us. All around, beasts slithered, too fast for the eye to follow, only being still where they had affixed themselves to some poor sailor. On first sight, I took them for octopus or squid, for they had sucker-laden tentacles that they had used to cling to their prey. The tentacles were attached to a head the size of a man's clenched fist. But no squid I've ever seen had a face like that. Their eyes were the worst black pits that seemed to go all the way down to hell. The pits that sat above a mouth made of an elongated tube of muscular tissue that pierced the victims' bodies and fed. The moist, sucking noises reached us even above the howling wind, and that sound was the most terrible aspect. The beasts were everywhere. 6 men had already fallen, and 3 more feebly tried to keep the ravenous creatures away with little success. Gallagher jumped at the nearest one and tried to drag it off his victim. All he succeeded in doing was tearing a lump of flesh away from the poor man's chest. The creature writhed and squirmed in Gallagher's hands. Tentacles quickly circled his wrist and started to squeeze. "Get this bastard off me!" he shouted. Roberts obliged, but was more circumspect in his approach. He ran below deck and came back with an oil lamp. "Turn your head, man," he said to Gallagher, then spilled hot oil onto the beast's face. The black eyes popped, flesh slowed away, and the creature fell to the deck. Gallagher stomped on it until it was little more than jam. Another man, I'm fairly certain, was McGinnis the stoker, ran past us with one of the things clamped on his face. He went over the side without a sound. I ran to the rail to look. The sea below seethed, filled with the squirming, writhing tentacles of the beasts. I saw 3 men bolt for a rowboat. They were caught and quickly became food for scores of the creatures, their tentacles waving as if excited by the kill. The beast seemed to know I was watching. Half a dozen heads turned, black eyes staring up at me. Then they moved as one, scrambling up the hull, coming straight for me. If the Dubliner had not lurched at that precise moment, I would have been taken, for I was so transfixed on the creatures I could not move. But when the deck tilted, Roberts dragged me aside.
"To the stern, man,"
he shouted.
"and pray the lifeboat is here."
We ran, even as the things clambered up over the gunwales and came after us. Gallagher, Roberts and I were the only men still standing by the time we had reached the stern. The sight that met us made me fear that I was not going to outlive my old mates by very long. The sperm whale, the Dubliner's last catch, seemed to be the source of the infection. Its belly was vastly swollen and distended with a gaping hole in the blubber, and a nest of beasts all fighting escaped from within. Our path to the lifeboat was blocked by the slithering mass. "We can get to it from below. Come up from under," Roberts said. The thought of being trapped below decks with the creatures filled me with dread, but I knew that Roberts was right. It might indeed be our only chance of escape. First, we had to find a safe way to get below, and that in itself was no easy task.
"We need to get off this boat,"
Gallagher shouted. Neither Roberts nor I disagreed, but the beasts blocked our way in every direction, and some were beginning to close in on us. I considered diving overboard, swimming for it and hoping for the best, when Roberts kicked and stomped at any beast in range. They burst with moist squelches and lay still. "The heads are their weak spot. We can make it," Roberts said, pointing to the hatch leading below. "Just keep kicking." We moved quickly across the deck, frantically stomping, leaving a trail of slime and mucus behind us. One of the beasts wrapped its tentacles around my ankle and squeezed, sending a flare of hot pain up my leg. I brought my heel down hard and the head popped. The tentacles fell limply away. I dived through the hatch after Roberts. Gallagher was behind us, screaming. Roberts and I furiously pulled the hatch closed. Just as he fell through, one of the beasts was attached to Gallagher's shoulder, biting into him, making him scream louder. To the man's credit, Gallagher moved like someone who wasn't ready to lie down and die. He yanked the thing away, tearing out a chunk of his own skin, and threw it. The creature hit the wall, fell to the floor, and with a wet thud, and started scurrying back. Roberts lunged forward and brought his boot down on its head until it finally lay still. We stood there, covered in blood and slime, staring at each other. All around us, the Dubliner seemed to be alive. It swayed softly, the wind echoed through hollow corridors. But worst of all, the slimy skittering made the ship sound as though it had lungs, and we stood stupefied in the belly of the beast. Suddenly, all was silent, save for the creaking of the old boat and the distant roar of the storm. At some point in the melee, I lost my bearings. I thought we had descended to the area immediately above the engine room, but we were once again in the corridor that led to the crew quarters. And if the layout of the whaler was as I remembered, there was no easy way to get to our objective. Our situation has hardly improved, Gallagher said quietly. He bled heavily from the wound in his shoulder, but waved me away when I tried to help. I'll have time for doctoring later. I looked to Roberts for guidance. He bent over the remains of the creature at our feet. "What the hell are they?" Gallagher asked. "I'd never seen the like before." "Never heard of the like either," Roberts replied, wiping slime on his trousers. "It's some kind of squid, but I'm buggered if I know anything more than that. Besides, what they are isn't important. We need to get to the stern and fast. The boat is going into the rocks at any minute, and when that happens, we're all dead anyway." I wasn't too keen on being reminded of that fact. I looked down the corridor at the path we had to take. Even with the presence of oil lamps, it was too dark to see more than 10 yards. My imagination filled in the blanks only too well. I started in that direction, but Roberts had other ideas. "We could go further down," he said. "The most direct route is through the main hold." "But we have no idea what might be down there," Gallagher said. "Can't be any worse than what's above," Roberts replied. He lifted one of the oil lamps off from its hook on the wall. "And the sooner it's done, the quicker we can get off this ghost ship." I followed Roberts closely, hoping his last statement was close to the truth. We found the Irishman at the foot of the steps. The creatures had gotten him, but not before he had taken many of them with him. Charred remains lay strewn in a wide circle around the captain's body. A hole in his chest showed how he had finally succumbed. It hadn't been long either, for the firebrand in his hand was still warm. "He had the right idea," Roberts said, lighting the brand from the flame in the oil lamp. "We should have thought it ourselves. See if you can find more of these." I knew from experience that a supply of brands was often kept near the entrance to the hold in whaling vessels. I found 3 long ones and passed one to Gallagher. Then we lit up from the one in Robert's hand. We had enough light to see that we hadn't just found the Irishman, we found most of his crew as well. They tried making a stand. Some corpses lay hidden behind barrels and crates, others were piled at the foot of some stairs. Bloody, slimy trails led away from each of the dead and faded into the darkness of the ship. The boat swayed hard, threatening to throw us off our feet. In a corner, a sea beast scurried away. I expected Roberts to quickly head for the stern, but he and Gallagher had eyes only for the cargo. I saw that the hold was almost full. The whaler had made a profitable trip. The barrels sloshed as the boat rolled, each I assumed full of whale oil. "There's a king's ransom here," Gallagher whispered. "We've got to try and salvage what we can." Roberts laughed bitterly. "What we need to salvage is our lives." Gallagher wasn't convinced, but he followed as we made our way through the hold. I jumped at every shadow, every creak of warping wood as we went forward. When the attack came, it came from 2 directions. I turned towards the sound to see the tentacles reaching for my face. I grabbed the brand and hit the head square on. Something hissed, and the air filled with a stench that made me gag. Hot spew rose in my throat. I saw that the creature was burned badly. One of the black eyes had popped and dribbled noxious fluid onto the deck. Before I could lift my foot to stomp down, it lunged at me again like a coiled snake. I poked it twice with the brand, and the flames took on the second attempt. The head went first. Tentacles writhed and thrashed in a frenzy until I brought my boot down hard. Behind me, Gallagher and Roberts sounded as though they had troubles of their own. I turned to my crewmates. They had not had my good fortune of hearing the attack. A second burning beast was on the deck. Roberts was still on his feet, but white as a sheet, apart from where a wash of blood ran down his chest, a gaping wound at his neck, evidence of where the thing had penetrated his throat. "I'll be fine," Roberts whispered. A moment later his legs gave way despite Gallagher trying to hold him up. He fell at my feet, dead eyes staring up at me. Gallagher headed forward at a flat run. The ship's breathing grew harder and more intense, the swaying increased, and the slimy movements all around reinforced the illusion of lungs. I got to the stairs that led up to the stern just in time to see Gallagher step onto the deck some 12 feet above me. I flinched, expecting him to be immediately attacked, but all I heard was the whistle of the wind and the roar of water on rocks. The vessel struck something hard enough to make me lose my footing and drop the brand. It hit the deck, snuffed out and rolled away. Somewhere in the shadows I heard another beast move. I fled up the steps, praying not to be hauled backwards down into the dark. Gallagher took no notice of me. He stood staring towards the shore. The lights of Trinity was twinkled in some quarter of a mile distant. By some miracle, we had made it unscathed through the narrows and were being propelled towards the main harbour. "We can bring her in," Gallagher said. "Salvage the oil. We can be rich men by the morning." I was tempted, and I saw it in my mind's eye, the taverns and the whorehouses overrun by these sea demons, burrowing into drunken flesh, feeding on babes, and the old alike taking the town by storm. I could never allow it. The look on Gallagher's face said that he was lost in greed with no thought for the consequences. I did the only thing I could think of. I cracked him in the jaw as hard as I was able. To my relief, he fell out cold. Gallagher's a big lad, but I wasn't able to manhandle him onto the rowboat easily enough. I left him there, took up his firebrand, and made my way back down into the hold to do what needed to be done. It was dark. Every sound, every shadow made me jump, but the fear of what might happen to my town drove me forward. I kicked over the nearest barrel, then another, and two more, before one finally obliged me and split open, spilling oil. The skittering sounds grew louder, but the beasts did not approach. I managed a grim smile as I put brand to oil and the deck blazed in flame. I fled upward, fire nipping at my heels. A creature threw itself down at me from above. I caught it by the tentacles, slung it around my head and tossed it into the flame. It took some layers of skin from my hands it left, but that was a small price to pay to see it burst open in the fire. The first barrel blew as I reached the main deck, the concussion almost knocking me off my feet. The vessel shook and lurched sharply to port. I had a bad couple of seconds when I couldn't find the winch for the lifeboat, and only released it just as a second explosion nearly tore the whaler in half. I fell, my stomach in my mouth, the boat hitting the water hard and almost overturning before I was able to get an oar in my hand. Gallagher woke, groggily unawares of what had happened. Then his eyes burned with anger when he saw what I'd done. But the anger quickly turned to terror as the sea between us and the rapidly sinking vessel began seething and roiling. A mass of tentacles rose as if tasting the air, seeking us out. Scores of the creatures had escaped the ship and they were making straight for us. "Row, you bugger!" I shouted, and Gallagher thankfully didn't argue. 2 more explosions racked the stricken whaler, then a third, huge blast that filled the air with smoke, splinters and ash. When I could see clearly again, the Dubliner was gone, save for a mass of wreckage bobbing on the water. The tentacled beasts swam fast and were mere yards from overrunning us. I gripped the oar, meaning to use it as a club, ready to take some of them to hell with me. And that's when the sound came from out beyond the Narrows. It was a high wail, like the one we had heard from the creatures earlier, but deeper, resonant. It sang out like a great church organ, high and clear, even above the roar of the wind. The swimming beasts stopped, their interest in us suddenly gone. Scores of mouths opened, the feeding tubes raised high out of the water. As they too wailed, answering some distant call, the noise from beyond the Narrows grew louder, more insistent. The beasts started swimming again, not towards us, but off towards the Narrows. "Oh my God, it's huge," Gallagher said. We rowed to the shore in silence. We wouldn't speak of what we saw again, not until later in the warmth and comfort of the tavern. "It filled the whole of the Narrows," Gallagher whispered, so no one but I could hear, chilling me once more to the bone. Their mother called them home.
You've just heard Home from the Sea, written by William Meikle, performed by Daryl Castillo, and produced by Craig Groshek. Great maritime horror has a way of reminding us how small we truly are. Long before satellites mapped the globe and sonar probed the ocean floor, sailors understood a simple truth: the sea keeps its own secrets. Every voyage beyond the horizon meant placing your life in the hands of a world that could become unimaginably hostile without warning. William Meikle captures that uncertainty beautifully from the opening pages. What begins as a straightforward rescue mission quickly transforms into something far more terrifying. Not because of the storm itself, but because the tempest has delivered something home that never belonged anywhere near civilization. If tonight's tale left you wanting more, you'll definitely want to check out the work of William Meikle. Originally from Ayrshire, Scotland, and now living in rural Newfoundland, Canada, William has become one of the most prolific voices in modern horror fiction. With more than 30 published novels and over 300 short stories appearing in 13 countries, his fiction has earned readers around the world through its unforgettable blend of supernatural horror, creature features, mystery, folklore, and cosmic dread. His stories have appeared in numerous professional anthologies and magazines, including Nature Futures, Galaxy's Edge, and many others, while his novels have become favorites among fans of classic monster fiction and Lovecraft horror alike. When he isn't writing, William enjoys playing guitar, enjoying a good beer, and dreaming of fortune and glory, all while living in a picturesque Newfoundland fishing town with whales, bald eagles, and even icebergs right outside his door. It's an inspiring setting for an author whose imagination so often ventures into the unknown. You'll find many of William's novels and collections available for purchase on Amazon.com. Simply search for William Meikle, spelled M-E-I-K-L-E. We also encourage you to visit WilliamMeikle.com, where you can learn more about his work, discover new releases, and explore his extensive bibliography. And if you do pick up one of his books, be sure to leave a review afterward. And don't forget to let him know Steve and everyone here at Chilling Tales for Dark Nights sent you. Before we close tonight's episode, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone supporting Chilling Tales for Dark Nights through our exclusive patrons area. For just $7.99 a month, you'll receive ad-free versions of every episode, early access to new releases, exclusive bonus content, and complete access to our ever-growing archive of premium material. Annual memberships are also available at a discounted rate, making it an even better way to support the creators, performers, producers, composers, artists, and everyone else working behind the scenes to bring these stories to life. Your support allows us to continue producing the immersive horror experiences you've come to expect, while helping us fairly compensate the talented writers, narrators, musicians, sound designers, editors, and production staff whose passion and creativity make this show possible. To learn more or to become a patron today, visit chillingtalesfordarknights.com. On behalf of everyone here at Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, thank you for spending part of your evening with us. I'm Steve Taylor, and it's been my pleasure to be your host. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, we'd love to hear what you thought. Leave us a comment, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and if your favorite platform allows it, please consider leaving us a rating or review. Those simple gestures go a long way toward helping new listeners discover the show. If you know someone who enjoys atmospheric horror, maritime mysteries, or tales of unimaginable things lurking beneath the waves, be sure to share this episode with them. For even more terrifying fiction, visit creepypastastories.com, where you'll find hundreds of additional stories to keep the nightmares coming. And don't forget to follow Chilling Tales for Dark Nights on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble to stay up to date on new episodes, exclusive content, live events, and special announcements from everyone here at Chilling Entertainment. Until next time, turn off the lights.